Okay guys, so today we're going to be doing 1.2, solving multi-step equations. I would like you to put this on page 15 and 16 of your notebook. That means algebra or second period. Please skip pages 13 and 14, and we'll put your vocabulary page on that. Fourth period, this should be the next page in your notebook. So pages 15 and 16, 1.2, solving multi-step equations. So first I'm going to give you some steps to solving multi-step equations. If at any time during the video you need to pause it to give students more time to write, please do so. So I'm not going to be pausing, but you can pause it to have more time to write. So to solve multi-step equations, the first thing you are going to do before you do anything else is clear any decimals or fractions. So not all of the problems will have decimals or fractions in them, but the last couple that we do in your notebook will, but the first couple won't. But that will be your first step for problems that do have fractions or decimals in them. After you take care of that, the next thing you are going to do is distribute and combine like terms. So you'll distribute and combine like terms if possible. And then you will use inverse operations to solve for the variable. Okay. You should have last year used inverse operations to solve for one-step and two-step equations. So this year we'll be solving equations just with more steps. So inverse operations you should be okay with. Basically we're going to try and get x on one side and all the numbers on the other. So let's look at our first example. Example 1, I have 5 equals 5m minus 23 plus 2m. So for this problem, there aren't any decimals or fractions, so I'm going to skip that step, and I'm going to go into distribute and combine like terms. There's no distributive property here, but I do have some like terms, 5m plus 2m, so I'm going to do that. So 5 equals 7m minus 23. And then I'm going to use inverse operations to get that m by itself. So first thing I'm going to do is add 23 to both sides, because we take care of the addition and subtraction first. The reason we add 23 is because negative 23 plus 23 is 0. So that gets rid of it totally on the right. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I add 23 to the left. That's going to give me 28 on the left. 5 plus 23 is 28 equals 7m. This is the same as saying 7 times m, so to undo that multiplication, you're going to divide both sides by 7, because 7 divided by 7 gives me 1, so that's going to be a 1m on the right. And 28 divided by 7 gives me 4, so I get 4 equals m. To check that I got my answer correct, I'm going to take 4 and plug it into both places that I see m. When I solve it out, I should get an equal expression, so a true statement. But that's solving just using combining like terms. So in your textbook, on page 12, for example 1, I want you to do problems A and B. You will need to pause it to give everybody time, and then you can check your solutions with what I have. So for example 1, part A, you should have done inverse operations to get m equals 6. And part B should have been y equals 3. So check my solutions and my work against yours, but this is all the correct work. So make sure you're able to follow along. Let's do example 2. So in my notebook, I just put example 2 next to example 1. And here's the problem. You do not have to write it all out. Just write out the work that I'm doing. But I want you to see what the problem is. So Martha spent $67 shopping with her niece and nephew. Her niece bought $4 worth of candy and 1 shirt. And her nephew bought only 2 shirts. I want you to find the cost of 1 shirt. So with a word problem, we always have to define a variable, meaning we have to set a variable into the problem and then tell the reader what the variable stands for. So I'm going to let S equal the cost of 1 shirt. And then I'm going to write an equation that represents this problem. So Martha spent a total of $67. But 2 people were buying items, her niece and her nephew. So the total is going to be the cost of her niece's stuff plus the cost of the nephew's stuff, and that should equal the total amount Martha spent. So the problem says that the niece bought 1 shirt, so S, but then she also bought $4 worth of candy. So we're just going to do plus 4. Plus, the nephew bought 2 shirts, so 2 times S. And we know that the total amount comes out to $67. So this is saying the cost of 1 shirt by the niece, plus the $4 in candy, plus the 2 shirts from the nephew should equal $67. Since S plus 4 doesn't have anything to distribute inside, we can just take the parentheses down. And then let's combine like terms. 1S plus 2S gives me 3S plus 4 equals 67. Subtract 4 from both sides, so we have to undo addition and subtraction first. So we get 3S equals 63, and then divide both sides by 3. So we end up with S equals, 3 goes into 63 21 times, but this is money, so make sure you put the dollar sign. So 1 shirt cost $21. So in your textbook, for problem 2, do the 1-word problem that they have. Pause the video so that you have enough time to complete the problem. So in this problem, S is the cost of 1 package of strings. The equation should have been 2S plus 16 equals 72. Take down the parentheses and then combine like terms. Subtract 16 from both sides and then divide both sides by 4. So 1 package of strings cost $14. Example 3. -8 times 2x minus 1 equals 36. So in this problem, there are still no decimals or fractions, so I'm going to go into distribute and combine like terms. In this problem, there is distribution that we can do. So distribute the -8. And I'm just going to multiply here instead of writing it all out like we did yesterday. Negative 8 times 2x gives me negative 16x. And negative 8 times negative 1 gives me plus 8 equals 36. Subtract 8 from both sides. So we get negative 16x equals 28. Divide both sides by negative 16. So we get x equals, a positive divided by a negative gives me a negative, but 16 does not go into 28 evenly. So I'm going to leave my answer as a fraction, but I need to reduce. 28 and 16 both reduce by 4, so I'm going to divide the top and bottom by 4. 4 goes into 28 7 times, and 4 goes into 16 4 times. So you can give me your answer like that. If you would rather write it as a mixed number, you can write it as a mixed number. 4 goes into 7 once with remainder of 3, so negative 1 and 3 over 4. You could also, if you would like, give me your answer as a decimal, negative 1.75. Any of these three answers I will accept. So then let's do problem number 3. Just do part A for me. So in your textbook, do part A for number 3. So in problem 3, you distribute the 3, and then you can use inverse operations to solve, and you should have gotten an answer of x equals 6. So let's do example 4. Three over 4 times x minus x over 3 equals 10. These fraction problems are the reason why we did the least common denominator or least common multiple yesterday, because we want to clear those fractions, and the way that we clear those fractions is by multiplying by the least common multiple. Remember, the least common multiple is the number that both the denominators multiply into. So if I'm looking at 4 and 3, the least common multiple for both of those numbers would be 12, which is the same as saying 12 over 1. So multiply the entire equation by 12 over 1, and then when we distribute it, here's what we end up with. 12 times 3x over 4 minus 12 times x over 3 equals 12 times 10. And then actually write all of that out. So that's going to be 36x over 4 minus 12x over 3 equals 120. 4 goes into 36 9 times, so that's 9x minus. 3 goes into 12 4 times, equals 120. Combine your like terms, so that's 5x equals 120. And then divide both sides by 5. So you get x equals 24. So do problem 4 in your book for me, parts A and B. These might take a little bit longer. Both of your answers will come out as fractions. So just as a warning, both of your answers for problem 4 will come out as fractions. So here's the solution for A. The least common multiple is between 5 and 4 is 20. So I multiplied by 20 on top and bottom, or on everything, which gave me 40b over 5 plus 60b over 4 equals 60. Then I reduced the fractions and I solved, and I got 60 over 23. Or if you wrote that as a mixed number, 2 and 14 over 23. For part B, the denominators were 9, 6, and 3. So at first, I thought that the least common multiple would be 9, but 6 doesn't go into 9. So the least common multiple of all three of these would actually be 18. So there's the work for that one. When I multiply 18 out, I get 18 over 9 equals 90 over 6 minus 18m over 3. I reduce the fractions to get 2 equals 15 minus 6m, subtracted 15, and then divide both sides by negative 6. Remember, a negative divided by a negative gives me a positive. So I get m equals 13 over 6, or 2 and 1/6. So let's look at the last example, example 5. With decimals. 3.5 minus 0.02x equals 1.24. So in this problem, we would like to clear the decimals so that we're only working with whole numbers. So in order to do that, we want to multiply the entire equation by a number that will move our decimal place over. And remember, zeros move our decimal place over. So this 3.5, I want to multiply or move over 1, but the 0.02 and the 1.24, I want to move over 2 spaces. So I need to multiply by the number that will move my decimal over 2 spaces, which is going to be 100. So multiply by 100 and distribute it in. So that's going to be 100 times 3.5 minus 100 times 0.02x equals 100 times 1.24. (100) times 3.5 is going to give me 350 minus 2x equals, this decimal is going to move over 2, so 124. So to solve, I'm going to subtract 350 from both sides and get negative 2x equals negative 226. And then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So x equals, a negative divided by a negative gives me a positive 113. So the last problem I want you to do is problem 5 in your textbook. Your answer might come out to a decimal, so make sure you are aware of that. So here's the solution. Because this second term, the first term we only need to move the decimal over once. The second term, we need to move it over 1, 2, 3 times. And the last term, we only need to move it over twice. So we have to multiply by the number that will get rid of all the decimals. So 3 zeros at the end, because we need to move that 1 over 3 times. So when I multiply everything by 1,000 and I distribute, that gives me 500x minus 2,325 equals 3,950. Add 2,325 to both sides, and then divide both sides by 500, so you get x equals 12.55. So that's your notes for today. If you guys have some extra time right now, you can start working on your homework for tonight, which is page 19 in your book, numbers 20 through 40 all, which is only 20 problems. So start working on that for me.